Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Medtech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So, today on the Medtech Impact Podcast, we're delighted to be joined by Spencer Jones, founder of XO Medtech. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. I've been looking forward to doing this for a while.
Well, we have as well. I mean, we connected last year, and you guys are up to some cool stuff, I have to say. And I think it's a little bit different again from what we usually have as a guest and sort of spotlighting on the show. So there's a lot to unpack here. But as always, we like to frame it for the audience by sort of thinking about the big problem or problems that you're looking to solve with XO Medtech.
Essentially, we saw a big problem with the siloed nature of medtech and medtech innovation. Everybody's afraid to talk about what they're doing in public. It's NDA before I'll even mention what I'm working on, and that's just so bad, and it's really hindering innovation. And the other piece, was access to networks was really bad because of those silos, unless you were in a hub. And then also the training and the education out there that existed for medtech innovators, your surgeons, clinicians, biomedical engineers that really wanted to advance their own medtech innovation or get skilled up on it. It was either overly expensive or really dry and bad and not how people wanted to learn. I like to say not made for human consumption. You know what I mean? And so that's what we're trying to solve. We're trying to kind of bring with a network and training platform better content, better training, better education, a community and network of now over 120, medtech innovators, and it's growing every day. So yeah, that's what we're doing. It's what problems we're trying to solve in XO Medtech.
Awesome. Absolutely love it. I mean, clearly that community aspect is something we're all about. And I think it's so important when you're on that entrepreneurial journey to have those people who, you can relate to, you can connect with, you can share your problems. And so it sounds like you're providing a fantastic way to do this. I guess I'd love to learn a little bit more, Spencer, to help the audience understand what led you to this place. What were you doing before you started all this?
Right. So I'm a nurse by trade, kind of was at the bedside, thought I was going to do anesthesia, but ended up patenting some medical devices in that vascular access and infusion space. And then the next, I would say 7.5 years was just fundraising, getting it through, clinical trials, going through the FDA. I was a class 2 de novo and just learned a ton, but I got very lucky in the sense of I did 6 accelerator programs. I could move to different cities to do them, and kind of got a crash course, but it was a very unscalable thing. I got lucky. I was, got one of 4 slots into this thing, one of 8 slots to this thing. And then after I left that company, started consulting on projects, and kind of all, but working in laparoscopic surgery, consulting on orthopedic projects here and there. And me and my co-founder at XO Medtech, we just saw a huge gap here, right, that I had described. And so we just said, hey, let's start with the education and training. And so built out this course for it. But it was really a realization of a gap in the market, but also understanding that the path that I took is not available to everybody. In fact, it's available to an incredibly small amount of people. And if you've been in medtech, anyone that's been in medtech has probably seen every post feels like a press release. It's dry. No one talks about what they're doing. If you look at tech and design, they're building in the open. They're shipping updates to their followers to build an audience and say, hey, here's how I'm doing this. Here's something cool that we did. It just doesn't exist in medtech, to medtech's detriment, right? So that was kind of my nurse to medtech entrepreneur, and seeing just a ton of advising and mentoring and then consulting for different projects. That's kind of what led us to where we are today.
That's super neat. And Kyle, I guess, for all the programs we've been involved with, we hear this again from founders, the challenges they face. And so it's great if you do get selected into one of these programs, but it is highly competitive. And again, depending on where you are and the contacts you have, can be super difficult to get inside these networks. And ultimately, it's all about the network. And so, Kyle, again, something we always talk about is this avoidance of staying in stealth mode. Stealth mode should just be put away into its own little box and never seen again, because it's all about, the mission, the story, and what you've got to share and tell.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's funny because we're hearing obviously a lot about this transition too from folks and founders wanting to stay in stealth mode. and now being more comfortable with really letting the world know about what they're doing, what they're developing, the problems that they're trying to solve, and how they're doing it, without really marketing, obviously, the device and technology because they can't. But I think they're realizing the importance of at least putting themselves out there, because what's happening is that's where they're gaining traction with investors. That's where they're able to attract top talent. And so it's really benefiting their companies in so many ways. So Spencer, when I think about XO Medtech and kind of some of the challenges and the problems that you've seen in the industry today when it comes to all of this and what you're building, I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is too. Tell us a little bit more about XO Medtech and what exactly you're doing to help founders and help businesses and companies really get the
Yeah.
resources that they need.
Yeah. So there's really kind of two core components to it. I guess technically three, but I'll kind of break this down pretty quickly. The network and community side. So like whenever you say like, hey, we're building a network or community, people, their eyes like glaze over. They just don't know what you're talking about. But think of the innovator that's working in a health system, right? Surgeon, clinician, whatever. They've got an idea, like where do they go, right? Where do they go? They may go to their tech transfer office or somebody that's maybe they've got a nicely staffed innovation department, but like from there, that innovation department is going to be like tasked with connecting them to the people that they need to help them build their business. And that is usually a fairly small subset of people. Or even if like, hey, I need to talk to like some OBGYN surgeons or some this, like they're just trying to go back to the same well over and over again. And that kind of is a limited network, but also exhausts that network. So 120 members in there right now, and it's growing every day. But the ability to say like, ask the community, hey, I need to talk to some OBGYN surgeons. And we've got people from all these health systems and all these places that can help you feed kind of that need. Or if it's a question about IP, right? We've got IP attorneys there. If it's a question about fundraising strategy, we've got security council folks, right? General counsel, the securities. So that network effect is huge. It's kind of that collective genius, if you will, right? That's the network and community piece. The training platform is 40. Right now we have the playbook, which is kind of our Bible. It's our MBA in MedTech innovation. We say 49 lessons. They are bite-sized. They are digestible. You can do them async. It is not walls of text. It is information, text, infographics, case studies, video walkthroughs, and then and it feels like you're binging Netflix when you go through it versus just reading the biodesign textbook. And then finally, something that we're doing that no one's really doing this is we're building downloadable tools, templates, guides, free web apps, and resources that anyone can, some of it's anyone can use, but within the community and it kind of embedded within the playbook, we've got downloads and templates where it's like, hey, we taught you about this fundamental concept and we told you about the strategy you need to take. Here's a template. Here's a tool where you can take it, put it into action immediately and really advance your business versus just hearing a sermon from someone, right, over an hour and a half webinar, and then you're like, that was great. What do I do now? I've still have all the tools and resources I came into this with. So those are kind of the buckets that what we're doing there.
Well, what sounds really cool too is like, you would think you would use LinkedIn for that, but LinkedIn is such a broad, vast kind of, social network. And what you've done is you've really, you've gone all in and tailored it to that niche of medical device, of med tech, right? And building all those resources, having that one area to be able for people to scale their efforts too. I mean, you were saying earlier, you had to travel all around the country to be a part of these programs. Well, now if you have the ability to be a part of an online community that provides those resources, and I would imagine when you're coming up with all of these downloadable educational, tidbits there, but when you're creating those, how are you creating those? Are you creating those in partnership with other founders, other industry experts that really know that space?
Yeah, so there is a good bit of like we relied on expert partners, I'd say, to do some vetting for some things. I mean, we and some of them like we've collaboratively built. Like we've got deep dive modules that are even outside the playbook that we built with, a general counsel, like a legal firm, regulatory firm, a quality firm. But like my co-founder, used to run a med device, venture studio, right? So, the things about what's a good RFQ look like, right? Like how do you do your own IP research, right? And build a literature review. And some of it is just, it's not that you couldn't find this out there on your own, but it is the collection, the synthesis, and then the simplification and templatization of all of that stuff in a centralized place, that I think makes it unique. But like, hey, I want to get started on a clinical trial protocol. Like, where do I start? What does it need to look like? What's the table of contents, right? Like, and what are the sections? Like, you could maybe, it's hard to find a robust clinical trial protocol template, right? Because a lot of the consultants that do that for you are not going to put that out on online, right? So those are the types of things. A lot of it was just learned experience. I mean, the founding team, we've got, over 20 years doing med device innovation. So a lot of it was us, a lot of it was leaning on experts to help vet that stuff. One final quick point too, though, is about, I kind of missed this, the XO brand, and we have a podcast and the content that we put out on LinkedIn. We are really trying to kind of push the ecosystem and the ethos around medtech into a place of collaboration, engagement, kind of sharing your work, working in the open, because the people, medtech entrepreneurs frustrate me so much. I love them to death. I am one, but like, they think it's just all about the idea, and it's not. It is like 98% execution. And how do you get better at execution if you don't talk to people about their execution and you don't share and get insight on your own execution strategy and tactics, right? So like this we're trying to push people out of this, like, I've got my idea, I need to hold it over here and I can't tell anyone about it, and into a place of like, this is what we're working on, here's what we're doing, do you guys agree? I need help, right? Because people don't want to ask for help. Like, it's weird. Medtech people don't like asking for help.
Yeah, I love those three pillars you were talking about before as well. I mean, that community aspect again is huge. Accessible knowledge, absolutely love it. But the third piece, that actionable content, those templates you're talking about, where you can actually take that knowledge and then do something with it. And what we really like, I think, leaning to is that standardization. If we're investing a lot of value in just that learning process, we're kind of missing time and energy and the opportunities to be more efficient in taking that from idea to market. And I think clearly we have just so many problems in healthcare to solve. Let's not waste energy and value and money in that space. Let's focus more of that sort of downstream on actually doing stuff that turns that idea into something super helpful for patients, for the healthcare professionals. So I absolutely love your approach. Now maybe we can turn the corner, like, for what's coming ahead. So you've got, great, you've got a growing platform. You've got the podcast going out there. What lies ahead in terms of 2025?
Yes. So what lies ahead? Continuing to build out kind of just more kind of content. Like, it's a constantly evolving, like, community ecosystem, and so like continuing to build deep dive modules, different content, more tools. What lies ahead? We're rolling out, actually in 2 weeks. We're rolling it out in less than 2 weeks. MD&M West, medtechvendors.com. So this is going to be the place to find medtech vendors. Kind of, we call it the medtech match engine, right? You've got search engines. This is the medtech match engine. So we're really excited about that. We rolled out a free development roadmap tool that anyone can use. If you go to medtechvendors.com, you'll see in the top right corner, but basically to help people create roadmaps. So like, we want to keep leaning into those types of like free, accessible, like tools, like broadly, not even in the XO community, but just for everybody. But medtechvendors.com, I think there's directories that exist out there, supply directories. The thing that makes it really unique is the ability for companies and innovators, which it's free for companies and innovators to use. So if you're someone on any stage, scale, whatever, that is looking for vendors and getting quotes for your projects, you need to be using this because it's completely free and it's amazing. But the thing that makes us different than a lot of other directories or things that have been tried in the past is we allow companies to build kind of their products and projects, very detailed projects in the platform. And then we're using some natural language processing to help extract the exact capabilities they need, match those against these incredibly rich field profiles from vendors. So you're getting a percent match, and we level the playing field. You're not seeing X, Y, and Z firms that paid $5,000 a year to boost their thing. And so you're just getting force-fed, promoted vendors. No, we don't do that. You get matched and served up the people you want to get matched with. But then when you find someone you like, you can hit request a quote, and it auto loads your project details in, whichever one you select. And then we automate an email intro between the vendor and the innovator with all. And so you're going to get an email in your inbox that's got all the project details, both of you in. It's like, get to work, right? So there's also some quote management stuff to be able to do data visualization on NRE, lead time, per component cost, tooling cost, lead, like all of that data visualized when you put those quotes in to give you better decision making, export it, put it in a board presentation. And then on the vendor side, being able to have a data feedback loop to say, hey, your lead times are the reason you're not winning business, right? You're in the bottom 25% on your past 3 quotes that you provided, and you need to shore that up and win more business. So that doesn't exist today. All of those things we think are going to be a real game changer. And we also, for the vendors, right? How do you make money is the other question. Like vendors have to pay to have their profiles claimed, but we're still going to have a ton of vendor profiles on there that are unclaimed. But we're going to make it affordable for those vendors. It's going to be way less than they pay to go to trade shows that are not paying off for them right now.
And if I might say, we're seeing, I think in general, from a buying standpoint, you've heard the trend and you've seen it in other industries about companies needing to be more transparent with their pricing and their services, and exactly because the buyers are going out there doing their own research. They've got all the tools right there, so they're getting 70% of the way through that buying journey before they engage, who they think are the maybe top 3 vendors that they want to choose. And if you're not making it easy for them to get to that point, you're just simply not going to see the opportunities that you really could. So I love how you're doing that. I think it's super valuable, again, specifically to MedTech.
Yeah, and just like I was had some awesome conversations yesterday, the past 2 days. I talked to Lisa Vorenkova. She runs Ova Solutions. It's like a med device development firm. And she was like, yeah, they have a lot of projects that they work on, right, for clients. And they're like, yeah, we work with these, we want to find these clients, but then we also, for these projects, like we want to get them 3 high quality quotes for every single critical function, which means you have to reach out to 12 vendors. So like they're going through that process like hundreds of times, right? So like there's a lot of dual-sided users, right, that are going to be like, yeah, we're looking for projects, but we also have to get quotes for our clients too. And then I was talking to Jason Scher from Vitatech yesterday, and he started a manufacturing company because the process and the opacity, like you were saying, and the transparency just was not there. So I have personally seen US-based companies, the same exact product, materials, everything, components even, right, a 400% price disparity. And that's crazy, right? It's just, and so but it is very easy. And I'm not saying people are predatory, maybe some are, but like when you have, whether it's biomedical engineers or clinicians or surgeons that are trying to go and find these vendors and get good quotes, like it's very easy to take advantage of someone that doesn't know, it's a horrible process to get 3 quotes. And so they get 1 or 2, they're both bad, but they don't even know that it's bad, right? Or they don't even know they're a bad fit. So there's a lot of that we're just trying to kind of break, like kind of frame break how it's currently being done.
And that's huge. I mean, especially for a first-time founder. To your point, like if you don't know, you only know what you know at the end of the day, and you're coming into this cold, and you're just looking for the best that's out there, and somebody tells you this is the best thing, it's the thing you should be taking. You kind of just buy into it because you don't know otherwise. And so I love that idea of building the trust and transparency. And clearly, it just comes back to that standardization and what we're saying before. Like if we want to invest dollars and energy, we want to make sure that's going into the best place possible, which is taking that solution forward and getting it to the patients as quickly as possible. So saving all that time on the marketing or the business development where, there's just so much lost time and effort, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Maybe you could talk more about like how you're communicating and reaching your audience, because I know you mentioned as well the podcast piece.
Yeah, so we're very, very bullish on the video side just in general. Algorithms love it. It's the best way to kind of grow true affinity with your audience. Like impressions are great, but are you actually building a brand and building affinity with the audience that you're reaching with these impressions? So we've got the MedTech Innovation podcast that I host. We've got kind of everybody from innovators to service providers to experts that we'll have on there. I want to get you guys on the pod for sure, obviously. But that's been really great. You get a 30-45 minute pod, you can get a lot of leverage out of that through clips and different clips, and then putting them out through different mediums, YouTube Shorts, etc. But even outside the pod, we're trying to put out videos of like, hey, here's 3 tools I use to help automate this process. One AI tool, one this, one that. Because I think like that kind of like, growth hacking, indie hacker mentality is just so non-existent in medtech, and we need to see more of it for sure.
Yeah, and the value you're bringing the vendors to that will eventually be on the XO Medtech Medtech Vendors platform, like you're giving them so much value because you're really helping them create content, and you're helping them spread the word, spread the message,
Yeah.
create more awareness and interest and demand for their products and services. And I love how you're doing it in an organic way. You're doing it by leveraging just these social media platforms and YouTube and that's such low cost, right? And that's what everyone's about today. It's like, how can you spend so much less but make more organic, authentic content that really show you, and show your company in a whole new light that makes people go, wow, I really like, to your point with the video, I just love, what this guy Spencer is all about, his tone, his delivery, his demeanor, all this stuff. Like, that's someone I could totally see myself talking to and working with. And geez, he brings so much value and so many cool insights, and it's super engaging, right? So, I mean, obviously I'm also passionate about that too. So you're doing an amazing job at that. And you can tell that that is really what these vendors need as well. They need desperate help in that area. And I think that your platform is doing such a great job serving them too. So
Yeah, really quickly, just to jump in for the next question. People forget that like a lot of the contract manufacturing CDMO world, they're like less than 25 employees. They're smaller shops, right? Some of them are still pretty blue collar and maybe a family-owned business. So they're not SEO experts. They're not hiring SEO consultants. They're not paying for Google AdWords, but they are competing on that same plane with these private equity-backed roll-up groups that have so much cash to spend on this. And so like and also the trade show channels that they used to really rely on, like trade shows took a hit during COVID, but I think for a number of reasons, they've just not been as good at generating business for these CMs and CDMOs. So like, we've talked to some that are just like, we have killed banner ads. We've killed these marketing, right? Cost per click, pay per message send. The trade shows aren't working. And they're like starving for a better way that's like a strong ROI to find business, to find leads, but not just like it's like qualified leads, because a lot of the times these people are winning 20 to 50% of the leads that they get, right? They're closing business on 20 to 30, 40% of those leads. So like the leads are really valuable when they're qualified and when they can get discovered. So that's a big thing. And one small point too, sorry, but I've talked to a lot of vendors where they're like, I want to, whether it's deleverage my customer concentration or client concentration, and that can be size of customer, or that can be specialty, spine versus hip, or instruments versus implants, right? And it's hard for them to put that want into action, because where are they going to overhaul their entire website every time they want to have a strategic shift in, right? We bought this new piece of equipment and we want to do more PTFE balloon catheters now. How are they going to actualize that? And so one of the things we're doing in Medtech Vendors is you can kind of have these interchangeable superpowers that from a match perspective will overweight like whenever that someone looks for that on the matching algorithm, so that you can say like, I'm going to lean into this specific subset of my services on medtechvendors.com to try to drive business where I see either a growth area, open shop floor time, or equipment that I just purchased, or a new hire that I want to make sure that they're getting business.
And again, I think what you're saying here is these intentional collisions. So like if we're going to frame it with the content marketing, we're going to build that trust. The conferences of today are all about those intentional collisions. They shouldn't be going there by chance and expecting somebody to randomly come up to your booth. They should be driving there just to find you because they know you're going to be there. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about, you're going to be at MD&M West. Where can the people find you? What's the approach? How do vendors get in touch?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're going to be pounding the pavement, as I like to say. So we're not going to have a booth, but we're going to be roaming around. You can find me on my LinkedIn. We'll put it in the show notes. I would say just DM me and we can find some time. There's a couple events that we're going to during the evening, but we're going to be there roaming the floor the entire time. I would say, you can also reach out. You just go to medtechvendors.com. You can kind of put in your email, but I would honestly just say, find me on LinkedIn and DM me, and we'll make sure we either come by your booth or whatever. And like, we'll even pre-build your vendor profile so you can take a peek at it and be like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. But yeah, I would say honestly, DMing me on LinkedIn would probably be kind of best, easiest way to find me, and we'll make a connection. We'll press the flesh, as they say at MD&M.
And what about the podcast? Are you looking to bring on any other types of companies? How are you looking to grow the podcast?
Yeah, great question. So I would say it's not even, I would say all comers. It's less about what's your archetype. Are you a founder, innovator, contract manufacturer, whatever? I want good, interesting people that are going to have fresh conversations, like the conversations you have in a pull aside or that you may not have in public, the takes that you have that you think might ruffle feathers, but everybody needs to hear it. That's the type of stuff that we want to talk about on the podcast. Like it, it's okay to say you don't like something. It's okay to say you think something's broken or someone's doing a horrible job at this, right? Like everybody agrees the healthcare system's broken, but then like you see people that are kind of like afraid to talk about any subcomponents that are breaking it or are doing it badly. So I think like, and not to say it's like a hyper negative thing that we're trying to do, but like we just want kind of fresh takes and fresh conversations, actionable insights, tips and tricks to win, like people sharing their secrets. It's like, hey, this is a cheat code we use to grow X or do Y. Like we just need more of that because like we're very rising tide lifts all boats. So whether you're a contract manufacturer, CDMO, you do biz dev, maybe you're a consultant, maybe you're an engineer at a large company or a founder or a early employee at a small company, like if any of what I just said just resonates with you, that's who we want to talk with on the pod.
Spencer, that's what it's all about, man, because at the end of the day, like, you've got to be giving those spicy takes. You got to poke the bear, and everyone's got a little bias in them, and just shout out to Joe Mullins the other day. I wish I could recall exactly who he was talking to, but I remember this clip, and he was like, there's this show, an event, and it's all about like, hey, get on stage and tell us what you think, what you believe. I don't care how crazy it is. People might, boo you and just completely disagree and say that's not what the data shows. But the reality is that this world is changing so much, and just everything we knew in the past is going to be so different in the future. And it takes a bold mindset, and it takes this being brave and being willing to put yourself out there and make a claim and a stake to say, doing it in a very intelligent, mindful way. You got to be respectful, right? You're not going to go ahead and diss anyone, but you're going to say, listen, like this is what's wrong. And I get it. Everyone's doing it this way, but it's wrong. And this is why. And this is where the future's going. And I think we're good examples of this, right? Because I know that how we want to help these OEMs is so untraditional, right? And how we want to help the vendors in this space. It's so untraditional. I talk about creating social influencers internally within organizations, right? And it's like in B2B, that's like so unorthodox, right? You see it in B2C, but not really in B2B. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Why not? That is obviously I'm putting a stake in the ground like you are, saying that's the way. And I love how you're helping others do that.
No, for sure. Like people, like you got to think about any content you're putting out. It's like you want to, you want to excite an emotion, right? Either excite them, intrigue them, frustrate them, right? Like if your post, if the audience is just like, huh, that is a statement, keep scrolling. Like there's nothing to that, right? It's just thin air, right? I want to give a shout out to a surgeon founder, Dr. Josh Ammerman at Combo Spine, who is doing just an incredible job of this. And he's not even, we had him on the podcast, but like he's really not even doing this video first. Pre-commercial orthopedic spine company that's grown his LinkedIn following. It's like nearing 3,000 followers. How is he doing it? Every single week from the Combo Spine account, which by the way, if you've ever tried to grow an account audience, like the company pages are harder to grow than your personal page, right? Well, from an algorithm 100%. Perspective. He's grown the Combo Spine LinkedIn page to almost 3,000 followers by posting every single week. And he's posting about T-lift surgery, right? Like radiation dosing, osteoporosis within our population, hormone replacement therapy, technical approaches. It's not even about like Combo Spine's product. But he is getting followers, traction, engagement, comments, surgeons piling in. And so why does that matter? He's not selling anything yet. Why does that matter? Because when you launch your product, when you put out that press release saying, hey, we're open for business, come buy our stuff, you're sending it to 3,000 people directly and then their audiences when they like it, et cetera, versus stealth mode, which I don't hate stealth mode in some situations, but I largely agree with you. But if you're stealth mode and then you launch your LinkedIn page and you put something out on the company page, it goes to 9 people. And like, what does that do? Right. So you cultivate an audience and then you build a product for them and then you get it to them. Right. That's the formula.
Trust me, you are preaching to the converted, and I hope the audience listening in agree as well, because ultimately to your point, like if you expect your one marketing campaign to hit everyone in one day, well, good luck to you, because it's all about turning up, being consistent, educating your audience and connecting with them. And I think there's a story to always be told. Spencer, this has been amazing. You're adding so much value to the community. Can't thank you enough for all you're doing and just joining us today to share more about it.
Yeah, honestly, it was a pleasure being on with you guys. Like I've been hosting a lot of podcasts lately, and so like being on the other side of it is it's more fun to me. So I really appreciate. I love what you guys are doing too. Like the ecosystem, the community, we got to help each other out. We got to like, rising tide lifts all boats. So thank you again for having me. It was just like an absolute blast.
Awesome. Well,
Superb.
ladies and gentlemen, another huge thank you to Spencer Jones, founder of XO Medtech, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Medtech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn. Until next time, keep innovating.